There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight's Leadership Roundtable series is going to be epic. We're discussing some very, very cool things with some very cool people. And it's the level of experience and exposure that we have that have come to this place, that have the experience, education, expertise that really get to speak to this. So we'll be talking about a couple concepts. We'll be focusing and having every one of you speak, be heard, and really get a chance to share. The entire purpose of tonight, why we would do a leadership roundtable compared to a webinar or a workshop or something else where somebody's, telling you or selling you or pitching you or slapping you and you're like, this is the word symposium is a place where leaders get to come together and share insights. And that's what tonight's supposed to be for. Now, on top of it, if it moves you and motivates you, by all means, book a one-on-one with Tim, book a one-on-one with me, book a one-on-one with everyone here. And that's the point. It's not meant to be a networking event. We don't want 46 people here. We're looking for very high level, very unique people. And we're trying to do something different. The level of conversation that we're having and what it means and what it can do for you, and your ability to not just sit back like a fly on the wall and be like, okay, sounds good. But actually participate and be like, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be naked. I'm going to open the kimono. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to talk about something. That's probably going to give you the best chance to really enjoy tonight. Obviously, book a one-on-one with each of us and have some fun. But knowing that you get to come here, knowing that you have a safe space that you can share. And we're going to ask some questions about situations that you come from, that you've been in, that you might be going into. And the more you open up with that, the more wonderful that feels. So, welcome, welcome, Thomas. Welcome, Brian. Welcome, Greg, Cindy, and Steve. Awesome sauce. I was just busy introducing the concept of what we're doing tonight. Let me introduce our host, Tim. Tim's got over 25 years experience in human resources. He's got management leadership across public, municipal, education, and nonprofit sectors. And as a seasoned executive coach, he's committed to enhancing leadership effectiveness. Certified executive coach, holds qualifications from ICC, ICF, IPEC, every freaking initial you can imagine. He's got a master's in counseling from Regent and a bachelor's in business management and speech communication. So he's here to help you understand. He's here to really hear you, but he's also here to help you be heard. And in a moment, I'm going to ask him to add some meat to those bones that I just did, and then to share the first insight for tonight. And then we're going to go around the room, have some quick introductions, share some insights, and get this party started. Cool? Tim, take us away, sir.
Yeah, well, it's so good to see everybody here. Thanks for making time, and some of you I haven't seen in a long time, so it's nice to see you. Cindy, you being one of those, nice to see you again. And yeah, as Natan said, so I spend recently, anyway, the last year and a half, I have been spending a great deal of time full time doing executive coaching and learning and development. And that is not, Natan said, a result of many, many, many years of doing it gainfully employed. And so I feel like I'm doing what I love at the current time. And I have spent this week, gosh, I spent this week doing a lot of different things, from grieving with family members to getting ready for a major piece of work that I am doing next week, to thinking about this evening. And the whole time I have been doing that, I have been thinking about all of these leadership things I have done. Um, and I've been thinking about how oftentimes leadership, we are called to evolve, we're called to change, we're called to kind of think about circumstantially, what kind of leader do I want to be? And so I've been doing a lot of thinking about what makes an effective leader for me this week. And I'm thinking what makes me an effective leader, or what I think about when I think about effective leading, is the having the in the moment emotional intelligence to be empathetic and to be sensitive to the needs of the people that I am around. So kind of inherent in that initial thought is, to be a leader, that you need to be interacting with others. And so to get the discussion started, I'd like you to think a little bit about that. What makes you an effective leader, or what makes a leader effective? This is a kind of a softball sort of question to get us started, but it's a priming the pump kind of a thing. What for
Okay.
you? What what makes an effective leader?
Who do you want that first question to go out to?
Yeah, so Lorraine and I did a podcast together. So Lorraine, how about if you jump on here or jump in here?
Okay, I'll be happy to because I answered that question a couple of days ago, and so to me a good leader inspires and motivates and helps people grow. It's very to me it's very important in life that we grow and evolve, and we have to be authentic. And as Tim just mentioned, we have to care. We genuinely have to care and listen to people. So that's what I got.
I like that. I
Great.
like that.
Lorraine, who do you want to hear from?
I want to hear from my buddy Scott.
And Scott, I think you're on mute.
Yep, there I go. Nice to see you here too, Lorraine. Thank you for coming. By the way, I asked Lorraine a couple of months ago to come because a few months ago it seemed like an all male party, and but it's good to see that we're getting some balance now, so that's good. About leadership, apart from all the obvious stuff, I just think that don't ever ask any of your team members to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. And what I mean by that is that one of my father's businesses many years ago was windshield repair, and I was in high school those days. I would come in, and after school I'd come to the workshop, and often I'd see my father with a broom in his hand sweeping the floor, even though that he owned the place. So he was never above anybody. He was always equal, and I think that that's important. That if you want to lead by example, not by what you say.
Right, thanks, Scott.
I like that.
And if you want me to choose somebody, how about Susan?
Hey everyone. So I haven't actually been in a leadership role for a while. When I retired, I kind of just went off and did my own thing. So, um, but I think what worked for me, I am not a people person. So the reason I ended up in a leadership role is because I get stuff done, and managers above me loved me. The people below me sometimes loved me, usually hated me. So, so it was, I was a good person for old corporate America. So, um, but I think uh, what my role was for the most part was to set direction and then protect my people from a million things coming at them.
Mm.
And as long as I did that, then they got their work accomplished. If they got their work accomplished, then we all had just a better life. And that was kind of what it was
I like that.
what do we just make it work for everybody? Yeah.
Well, it sounds like that was actually pretty thoughtful, Susan.
Um, yeah, I was a pretty demanding person though. So, there you had to get the work done. If I was going to protect you, you better be working
Right.
because I wasn't going to make excuses for you either. So, so I'll protect you until you're letting us all down. And then I'm not protecting you anymore. So, yeah. It worked. We had our tough days, but we always had successes. I don't think we ever had a failure in a project. And when the awards start coming out, then I'm everybody's favorite, including the team members. But it's a long haul sometimes to get to the award night. So,
Great.
Wayne, do you want to go?
Yep, sure. Sure. I think my concept is really a combination of yours and Scott's. I really believe that, to be a leader, you really have to, be there with them. Same thing. I have always basically pitched in with everything. I wouldn't expect somebody to do something I wouldn't do. But on the other hand, very much so that, if they're struggling, I'll help them. If I have to do their job, then it becomes a problem. Now, as a coach, I coach a lot of kids' sports. You try to coach them up as possible, but as much as possible. But everybody has their own natural abilities, whether they're physical or mental. And as much as you coach some people, you just can't get them to that level. So you can help them rise to the level they can. I think the best quote is, I worked at Ogilvy and Mather in New York, and when you get promoted to vice president, you get one of those Russian dolls, and in it it's got this little, you're opening a doll, opening a doll, opening a doll, and at the end it says, always remember to hire above yourself, because if you do, you become a company of giants. And that's kind of the concept of leading and coaching. You want don't be afraid of hiring people who are smarter than you, and don't be intimidated by them when they go past you. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Well done, Wayne. Well done. That's adding some wisdom.
Thanks.
Collective.
So I'm going to stick it on Cindy.
I had to find where my mute button is. I'm used to using Teams. Hey, Tim, nice to see you. Tim and I worked together at QVC many, many years ago. And we were in the same role in different locations at QVC. So it's good to see you, Tim.
Yeah.
I will be honest, much of the leadership experience that I've gleaned in my life actually was building up to, and then at QVC. They really trained up us, we leaders in HR, really well to help train other leaders. But I'm also in ministry, and I've run and built and had teams of people in ministry to do conferences. And while I'm doing HR work and leadership work there, I'm also doing this ministry stuff. So for me, it's definitely about the people and building those relationships. I believe deep down in the core, people want and need to be inspired. And so I think a leader's true job is to discover what is it that motivates somebody or that inspires somebody. But the biggest part of it is learning how to help them self-discover the same thing. Because if you can figure it out and help them figure it out, you have a vessel that is highly usable and much more easy to inspire. So that is one thing I think. I also, I love to work with leaders to help them not just self-discover, but be the best that they can be, because I think that people don't even understand their full potential. I think we limit ourselves, or society will limit us. And I think that the sky can be the limit. But if there is a limit, I want to be honest and real and authentic. So I think people are smart, and they know real and they know fake, and they won't trust you if you're not honest and real and genuine. I completely agree with that. Last but not least, I love the old quote. I always attribute it to Howard Hendricks. He said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I have lived by that principle and found it to be very trustworthy. So my 2 cents.
Goodness, me too. I love that.
Yeah, great. Brian, you're up.
If you have a chance to come on camera, go for it. If it's not possible, no worries. Oh, awesome. Nice to see you.
That was a surprise. Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Banks. I'm a founder and CEO of Go Another Level Incorporated. In regards to leadership, I actually loved everything she said. Forgive me for not writing down or remembering your name. I literally am just winding down from working with my sales team. And one of the first things my managers taught me once I got promoted to leadership 21 years ago was, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
It's a big one.
So it became part of our culture to create exercises on a daily basis to get to know more about the people. Because a lot of times when you're working with people, if you don't know about them, it's really tough to care about what you don't know about. You know what I mean? And like one of the earlier young ladies said, I naturally wasn't a people person. I was an athlete in high school, and I was looking for work. I worked a bunch of warehouse jobs first getting started, and then I got thrusted into sales. where we talk to 200 customers a day. And I had some really great leaders that helped me build my confidence, my people skills, lean on strengths that I didn't know I had. But in regards to actually building leaders for a living, it's really been a combination of what everyone said, but my foundation is accountability and example. Lead is an action. So when you lead, of course, you have people following. And that's whether subordinates, whether it's family, or even leading yourself. But I truly believe that if you set a high level of accountability and you just focus on improving your example, no matter what, you're gonna become a better leader for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So that's really what it boils down to. One of the young men said, not asking anyone to do anything you're not willing to do yourself. We literally say that every day. So and to me, that's just accountability. Leadership is one of those things that's ever evolving because I'm a total different leader than I used to be when I first started. I'm 40. I've been running my own company since I was 19 years old. I've been in positions where I was interviewing 100 people a week as a brand new business owner. And it was terrifying because most of the people I interviewed college educated, and I just graduated from high school. So I've been the guy that didn't want to hire people that were just smarter than me because I was afraid I would lose something. And then once I actually broke my comfort zone and started hiring people who were just really, really sharp, it really changed the culture of my business. We started praying together each morning as a team. In the beginning, I was like, what if I offend somebody? But as a leader, it's like, Brian, you have to have your own beliefs. Every leader has their own place that they stand. And your tribe is going to be attracted to your posture and how you stand. So I truly believe leadership is one of those things that if you just focus on becoming the best version of yourself for the rest of your life, you're always going to become a better leader for everyone else around you.
I love
Sorry,
that, man.
Thank you.
No, that was beautiful, man. Thank you. And it's very, very true that your clients, your customers, your staff, the people that are the most loyal and faithful and that love you the most, your people, they're like you, and your people like you. It's that's it, man. Like, honestly, it's basic and it's simple and it's primal, and you can tell really, really quick. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Hey, man. Thank you.
Let me ask. I believe we have Joel. If you can come on camera, introduce yourself, say a little hello, hello, share a little wisdom. If you're not able to, not the end of the world. You can sit like a fly on the wall. It happens sometimes, bad, spotty internet and whatnot. Oh, fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
Hello, Joel.
I think he's frozen.
Yeah, he looks
Oh,
frozen.
we were so close. We were so close. We
Let
were
me
right
throw it,
there.
let me throw it over to Steve. Steve,
Thank
welcome.
you.
Hey Tim, hey folks. Hi Cindy. It's good to see you. Thanks for having me on here with you. Appreciate the invite. And I love that everything people said with the beautiful words. And I guess maybe just one other way to do a voiceover on that would be thinking metaphorically about a leader crossing over that really rare but important psychological bridge with their constituents, where you go from being an antagonist crossing over the bridge to becoming their advocate. And so all the things that people said about caring and make a big difference in that. And in the end, we've all worked, if we reflect on those great leaders that we've worked for, it's almost impossible to look back on that and say, I wasn't at the top of my game. I was at the top of my game with that person, because they were my advocate, and it brought out something so deeply meaningful in me that we would jump through a wall, hoops, or run through a wall for them. So I think it's a lot about advocacy and all the other ways that you described it.
I love that. Thank you. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess I will end the party off very quickly, and then we'll go back to Tim and we will start the round of festivities tonight. For me, if you don't know me, my name's Natan. I've been an elite energy coach for the last 30 years. I started at Cirque du Soleil. I worked with Olympians, national sports teams. I've had about 15,000 people come through my hands in the last 30 years. Couple best-selling books. and I never would have come online. But COVID, and I didn't want to make cat videos. And I figured if you're a coach in real life for 30 years, how hard can this be online? Oh my God, that was awful. So the technology, the marketing, it was awful. I came in June 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And now we're going into our 5th year. And Allura Creative Agency, we're a very unique kind. We host one of a kind events, kind of like the one that you're at. We blow a dog whistle to your target audience, and we're looking for those incredible connections with those incredible people that resonate around. So it's a very, very different way to play. I'm going to put Tim's contact information in the chat. I'll put my contact in the chat. I would invite everyone to book a one-on-one with Tim. The advice and leadership and mentorship that he can give, epic. If anything I do this serves, by all means. But this is really, really going to be cool. Because Tim, get us started. I'm going to start posting.
Yeah. So as I said, Lorraine and I had a really great conversation today, or actually 2 days ago, and one of the things that we talked about was Lorraine has quite an extensive background and an extensive experience, and it was really fun to kind of talk with her about how leadership evolves. And we kind of touched on it, a little bit, this evening. Susan, you talked a little bit about, your time in corporate America and how maybe you weren't a great leader, but you were recognized to have some leadership ability because, well, you were a good individual contributor. And I think that maybe that's a mistake that a lot of people make is if I'm a great employee, I'm going to make a great leader. And maybe that isn't necessarily true. But I'd like you to spend a little bit of time this evening to think about maybe an insight that you could share about your own personal journey as a leader and how your leadership has evolved. Because again, I mean, I think somebody also mentioned this is, to have curiosity and to really think deeply about other people. I remember, I agree with what Scott said at the beginning. I totally agree that, if you're going to be a leader, you got to, roll up your sleeves and be part of the team that gets the work done. And I had that belief. And that belief, while good, really at one point in my career, maybe got me into a little bit of trouble because I was thinking about my team. And I was thinking that I thought my team wanted me to be that kind of a leader. But actually, through a series of events, one brave, courageous team member came to me and said, what we really want you to do is we want you to be a leader. We know you can do this work. Right now, what we need for you to do is we need for you to remove every block, barrier, and to set some really good expectations for the rest of the organization and what we're going to deliver. And if you don't do that, we will never be successful. And so in my own evolution as a leader, I think I became more mindful of my beliefs. What were my beliefs and did my beliefs, were they driving my behavior in ways that, yes, were effective, but maybe were preventing me from even being more successful? And so my awareness was I really need to listen and be aware of not only my beliefs, but my emotions too. So that's kind of what I would think about for my key insight in terms of an evolving leader.
I love that. Anyone want to comment on that?
Comments are good.
One of the things I think a lot of people who are leaders, they don't want criticism. They don't want to be told, you need to change. You don't, you need to understand that we don't all think the way that you do. And, an effective leader is going to take what they're told and either, people do take criticism two ways. They either take it and evolve, or they take it and they get angry, right? What do you mean? You don't know what you're talking about. I've, you know, unfortunately, I've worked in a bunch of organizations who the leaders, were basically, I felt like if I was going to be the first guy through the door, I'll get shot. That's the classic line. But most effective leaders will absorb what people are telling them, and give it critical thought. Most people will write off um, criticism because they know better. There's too many people who know everything. I use a term when I talk to people. Please never call me an expert. I have an expertise, because experts have ceased to learn. Whereas if you have an expertise, you can grow it. And I just see so many people who are expert in this, expert in that. I mean, and I apologize for going on here, but the internet, direct to consumer world has, basically, birthed this entire cadre of we're experts in online advertising, experts in ROI, experts. But if they're all experts, how come they're the only ones making money? It's really become a weird place. So when people tell me that I'm an expert, I really tell them, please don't call me that, because if I was an expert, I would know everything.
Yeah.
But I don't. I have certain expertise, but I'm not an expert.
Yeah, love that. Other thoughts that you guys have, maybe for yourself, what, when you think about your own leadership evolution, what insights do you have about that?
It's a great question, and I thank you for asking it, because it's really prompted me to go back over the years and consider my own evolution. I started out as bossy and in charge. My first position in leadership was in Washington, D.C. in the 70s. So I was the youngest supervisor at Blue Cross and Blue Shield in D.C. And the position, the title, the in charge of my team just clearly was, I was bossy and I was in charge. So that's where I have gone from, when Steve was talking about crossing over from antagonist it took me a long time to get across to that bridge. But over the years, developing my understanding, having my own self-awareness was huge. And what you talked about, Tim, understanding what are my values and how do I use them to contribute to others or to the success of the organization where I'm working. I think that as my leadership grew, I have had and developed a much better understanding of my role wherever I was. It's not just about the people. That's huge. That's where I build the relationships. That's where I get people, to follow. I am a servant leader. I do believe that I need to provide the tools and the experience and the training. I believe in all of that. That's my job, to help them be successful. But as a team, we need to be successful in order to be successful in the organization, to help the organization be successful. It truly is, if we're all about it, it's about making the money, it's about reducing the risk, so all of those things within an organization, I've really been able to develop over the years. And everywhere I've worked, I've gleaned, I look at two things always. What can I give and contribute, and what can I glean? What am I going to learn from this? And everything that I get involved in, it's one of the reasons I accepted your invite. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I want to know, what can I give and what can I glean? I want to learn. I'm still in that active mode. So giving and gleaning is huge. And the final thing I just share is accountability. One of my personal pet peeves is when people say you have to hold them accountable. And as a servant leader, I really don't agree with that. I believe that I have to help them want to be accountable to themselves. And accountability, the way I look at it, is truly almost an accounting term. The pluses and minuses we see in accounting, And I try to help leaders see, or my team see, what are you doing that contributes the plus sign, the value to our success as a team or as a company or to the project or whatever work you're doing? And what is it that you're subtracting from? What's being depleted because of. So we have to make sure we're feeding the right pluses and we're pulling out the right negatives, that we have a balance there for success. So accountability is something that to me is my job as a leader is to help people decide that they want to own it for themselves. So I don't know if any of that makes sense, but that's where my head is.
I like it.
Yeah, I love what you just said, Cindy. My story is so similar. I started my first corporate leadership position was with a $50 billion company, and I was the only woman in the room. And so I had a lot to prove, and I was all business. I was unapproachable. I'm not sure I was very likable. Extremely task oriented, and I mentioned to Tim the other day that I think I was overly protective of my personal boundaries. And, as time went on and I grew as a human being and I became more comfortable in my own skin and gained confidence that I could be a good leader, it started happening because I became an authentic person. And I love what you said about self-awareness, because that is critical. When you become self-aware, you become comfortable, and you have the ability, I believe, to relate to other people at a much deeper level. And when they respect you and when they genuinely know you care, I believe it's quite motivating.
100%.
And so that's my story. And I'm actually kind of semi-retired. I mean, I'm still working, but I've worked for good companies and I've worked for not the best companies. And then I finally got to the point where I got sick of corporate America, so I opened my own company. And that was an entirely different leadership style. But the biggest change for me was I had to become a human being, and not just a woman out there trying to prove my worth.
Not easy.
So knowing Cindy for a lot of years and Lorraine, knowing you now for the last couple of weeks, what the stories that you all described and who you are today, oh, I can't even believe any of that. Yeah.
I know a few people who could vouch for my story.
Well, you guys, I mean, there's so much really, and a number of things that you all have shared. Wayne, the connection between what you said and Cindy's, what I love, I need a second just to be able to say this because I think it's very powerful. But it is that, that I'm the smartest person in the room. Like nobody wants to work with the smartest person in the room. Nobody wants to not be open to somebody's suggestion or alternative way of thinking. That belief that we're all teachers and we're all learners and we all need each other. I mean, that's the awareness that Lorraine just, spoke of. If we're not aware to recognize those things, well, forget evolving, forget growing as a leader. It's just not going to happen. So really appreciate the things and the comments that you all have made.
The person who ever says that they are the smartest person in the room generally is not.
Yeah.
I've had so many conversations with people who will talk down and that. And honestly, if you're talking down to me, you're not the smartest guy in the room. I might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I got to tell you, I would never tell anybody that I was the smartest guy in the room. I know guys who've gone to Yale. I know Princeton grads, Harvard grads, and none of them act like they're the smartest ones in the room because they're smarter than that.
Yeah.
I think that speaks to your humility, which I think is an extremely important characteristic of a leader. that it's coming through in you, and it's visible. And I just think because people, they know authentic, they know humility, they know they're smart, they figure it out. And I think you're right, Tim. People don't want to work with that kind of a person who is even claiming that. So I love to see that humility in you too. It's very evident.
Well, one other thing, I always tell people, I know I'm an asshole. Right? I don't need you to tell me that. I know it.
So you're a humble asshole.
Right. I mean,
I have a wife. She tells me every day, I don't need you. I'm good.
that's right. If you can't, and then now I talk too much, I know, but what if you ever noticed when people who are insane get taken away to the nut house, they're going, I'm not crazy, I'm not crazy, I'm not crazy. If you can admit you're a little crazy, you're sane.
You're
Yeah.
That catch
I'm
22.
curious.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Curious, Susan, Steve, you guys want to jump in here and comment on anything that you've heard?
There's
Tim,
so many
can I
things
ask one
like
thing, Tim?
a
Just
journey
can,
of a
yeah,
lifetime,
go ahead.
to add here. I was trying to figure out like, well, just one thing. And I think I spent a lot of my energy and attention on trying to be liked by people. And if you know Myers-Briggs, like I'm an INFP, pretty classic, highly creative, but very, very conscious about wanting to be liked by people. And so where I've evolved that is to realize that I don't really have to work that hard at it. And it's more important for me to bring clarity to a conversation than to worry about my energy about being liked. And because I think most people can look in my eyes and realize that I'm not I am their advocate. I want to be their advocate, that I don't have a bad intention in a conversation, and I'm okay getting to radical candor a lot faster. And people seem to be way more accepting of that than what I would have assumed years ago as a youngster. So I think radical candor with all that good intent behind it has is where I'm at more so now than I used to be.
Yeah, right.
Tim, what I was going to ask is maybe can each person identify what industry they work in currently or have worked in? Because everybody's got different, every industry brings with it a different energy.
Yeah.
You
Sure.
know, so,
Yeah. But let's just quickly go around. Wayne, why don't you just quickly start that off for us?
currently, I'm a COO at a fashion company in New York, but I've worked for NASCAR and worked in advertising. So my background's a little diverse, as they say.
Right. Keep it going. Just somebody jump in.
I'm currently in human resources in manufacturing, but I've worked in transportation, warehousing, distribution, insurance, trucking, you name it. I've been in a lot of industries, but all in HR for a very long time. And also I've been running this tandem career in ministry. So I speak and teach and go up and down the East Coast to do women's retreats. It's a women's ministry. So it's kind of what I've done for the last 40 years. So
Yeah, I'm Steve Van Valen, CEO, founder of Culturology. So I used to work with Tim and Cindy at QVC. And I'm really an author, speaker, trainer. This past year, I wrote a book called The Search for Meaning at Work. And it's really all about how we as leaders can motivate people by making work more purposeful and have people seeing the meaning behind it. So I explore that based on all the years and years of interaction with people in the classroom and reading probably thousands of open-ended comments in our Q Perspective survey at QVC where people really were honest,
Ready.
So
That's awesome.
Yeah, Susan.
So right now I teach women how to invest, mostly women that have not done any of their own investing. So teaching them that whole space. But my career was running projects in nuclear plants with engineers and IT people putting in equipment in the nuclear plants. So it was a Navy-based environment and all that comes with that. And primarily men. I think I was there was only one other woman that was sort of not at the grassroots level at the very bottom. So yeah, it was a lot of rooms with just men. And like the two of you, I I think I started the same way you did, that you go in and you just have to be tough. You're just trying to hold your ground. The only difference is that I didn't get where you got. I was like that the day I walked out 30 years later, too. I never changed. I just kept doing it because it worked. It worked for me and it got me up the ladder. And so why change what's working? And I was really fortunate because I had a manager who we actually worked almost like a team. So he would move and I would move up along with him as he moved up the ladder, because he would have me go in and get the work done, and then he'd come behind me and sop up all the blood. And between the two of us, we got so much accomplished, and he was the nice guy, and so I was the bad cop. He was the good cop, and we got lots done. So, yeah.
Lorraine, what are you currently doing?
Well, let me start with what I used to do. So I started in hazardous waste, and I was in the environmental industry for over 20 years. Anything that has to do with the environment, I have been there. I've done that. Remediation, medical waste, nuclear waste, solid waste, recycling. I got out of the industry for about 10 years, went into high tech and ran an international division. And then I decided to open up my own company in Atlanta that focused on recycling and sustainability and ESG. Sold that a couple of years ago. And today I've devoted kind of my career to, I'm a business advisor, primarily on the financial side for small business owners to help them understand how to build business credit and become bankable, because banks are not really small business owner friendly these days. And so that's what I'm currently doing is, I just have a passion for helping small business owners because they struggle. And I don't want them to make the same mistakes I made when I started my own business.
That's beautiful.
And let's see, Scott, real quickly, tell us about you as well.
Okay, so I'm in the pest control industry, but I'm not your traditional exterminator that uses toxic poisons and all that sort of stuff. Mine's electronic. Well, it's actually electromagnetic. It's the only one in the world that's been scientifically tested to prove its efficacy. I'm not ultrasonics that emit sounds. I'm not the cheap gadgets that don't work. I'm in the middle of transitioning all my manufacturing back here to the United States. And hopefully the manufacturing will start to commence, hopefully by the end of this month. And I'll be launching the new model, the new Made in USA models during the month of November, if all goes well, with no further delays, because dealing with different manufacturers, getting things set up, ready for the transition to commence manufacturing here. It's just been a lot of hard work, but I'm determined to get through it. And our 30-year anniversary is coming up in January. So we've been doing something right for 30 years, because if we weren't, he wouldn't last that long.
Mm.
And really quickly, I have spent years, well, gosh, as your guys have been talking, I'm thinking I spent a little bit of time as a counselor in a university setting. I've worked in a municipal situation for a number of years. I have been in distribution, fulfillment, customer service, kind of the umbrella organization being electronic retail. And now recently as the owner of a company. So Natan, where are we headed? Do you want to? I don't want to. I've got
Oh
one.
no, I love where we're going.
I want to
Does
make a
anyone want to steer the conversation? I love where we're going.
I want to make a transition as
Do
we're
it.
talking about this. I'm curious too that there needs to be like, like an underpinning, or there needs to be like a grounding. When and Susan, I really appreciate what you said is, something worked for me. And because it worked for me, I just stuck with it. And that conscious decision where maybe I'm not going to change because I don't see a reason to. And who can fault that? But for others who have made conscious decisions to evolve whatever aspect of leadership needed tweaking, I'm curious to know, like, what needs to be in place, what elements need to be in place in order to recognize when change in your leadership is required. Does that make sense? Lorraine, you're laughing. What are you laughing about when I asked that question? I'm so curious. Your reaction.
The realization is, I believe, when you're not successful. And you have to ask yourself when things aren't going well and your team isn't producing, or you're not fitting in well, you have to sit down and ask yourself the hard questions. Yeah. And then make the adjustments. It's just inner growth.
So really, you need to be honest with yourself. You need to be able to say, hey, this problem maybe rests with me. There's an abundance of owning and accountability today, isn't there? I am totally making a joke. I feel like we need more of that. Like just owning it and saying, I screwed up, I messed up. That was a really, really bad mistake.
I believe the way I always say it with my teams is in the scenario that you just described, it's easy for me, if things are not going well, to think it must be them, right? And I want to look at anybody on my team or that I'm working with, what aren't they doing? Right. But it's really hard to look, to Lorraine's point, to look back at myself and say, what am I not doing? Or what am I doing that's that's contributing to this? And that is that accountability. And you have to have a very strong self-awareness and a courage to ask yourself that question. But I always tell my team, this is not about finger pointing, because I do not believe in that, but it is about pinpointing. So let's pinpoint the issue. Let's figure out where it is. And if it's with me, I'm going to own that. I want to own that. But usually the pinpointing is not just in one or even in one place. Usually there's a little plethora of pinpoints that we can begin to work on together. So I think you really have to, in order to make a transition, you have to be aware there's a failure, and then begin to look at what the possible causes. It's that old problem solving stuff, all those layered questions, the 7 whys. Why does this? Why does that? Why does this? I think it's all very vital to get in, to dig under it, and to be brave enough to go looking.
Right.
And Tim, I have to apologize profusely, but speaking of accountability, I've been cooking my family dinner as we've done this, and we need to sit down. Any of you, please feel free to reach out via LinkedIn. It's under Wayne Cloth, like washcloth or schmata. And I look forward to the next one. But my son's home from New York, so I've been cooking.
Go do your thing, man.
Thanks.
Priorities.
I appreciate it.
Go feed
Save
your
the
family.
chat, because we've got all the contact info in the chat. So just save it. And that way you can reach out to all of us.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a great night, guys.
Good priorities.
Susan, you were going to say something.
Yeah, it's interesting when you work in nuclear. Accountability is the number one thing, because you've got people's lives every day, and we talk about it every single day. We start every day with a conversation about safety for the day. People know what their role was and how important their job was, and so it's a different environment than any other. I had many jobs before I did nuclear. I had 20 years of work before nuclear. So it's why I stayed in that industry, was because the whole infrastructure of it was one of understanding why you're there every day and understanding how important every single person's job was in that space. And when you come into that, people do come to work. They might, we all have our bad days, but you do know why you're there, and you do know that people are counting on you. And it's not just your own family. It's like the whole town is counting on you doing your job right. So I think I did well in that environment because I didn't have to drag people into that accountability. They just lived there all the time. So it was extremely easy to set high standards and high expectations on people, because the only people that stay in that environment are the kind that do that to themselves for the most part. It's interesting because as I went through time, and this is to what you were saying, Tim, when you started this, about changing. As I went through those 20 years, I actually didn't like myself. I didn't like being the bad cop every single day. I got really tired of being the bitch. Like, and nobody called me that except me. And I remember one of my peer managers saying to me one day, he said, "You've got to stop saying that. Nobody thinks that about you. You just hold people accountable. You hold yourself more accountable of yourself than you do of anybody else. And you think you're too tough, and you need to stop calling yourself that." But I just, it ends up being the position that you're in. And if you see that in the mirror every day, you start to believe the press. And when I left that career, when I retired, it took me a long time to be able to talk to people again, because I really had to start to like myself again. So it's a really damaging environment. And I was very successful. I was very financially, and I was just a really successful employee, but I didn't like myself. And it takes a long time to come back from that. I was lucky I met really good people, and I love what I do now because I can create my own culture, and it's about women just hanging out and having fun together and getting rich. And like, who doesn't like that? So it's a different thing. I would never give up my career. I feed off of success. And so it was great. But there was a toll to be paid in that environment. And yeah. And I really I think the other thing is just, I'm going on and on. When I came out, and what got me into doing my own business is I found a group of people who were building businesses, and they were very people-oriented people. They were all salespeople, creative people, and I really loved the energy that they were creating. So I just wanted to be with them. I didn't have a business. I didn't even want to start a business, but I wanted to be with those people. And so I thought, okay, well, I have to go start a business, so I've got a reason to be in that room with them every day. And that's what brought me back to the kind of person that I really am, what I was when I was a kid. I was always bossy. My mother called me the bossiest thing around. So that is my nature, is to be bossy. I'm not so much, 50 is a good age. You kind of mellow out at 50 when you're a woman, or at least I did.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. You just kind of mellow at some point. It's too much energy. And you kind of don't care anymore. Right? It's like, have your own life, whatever. I'm not going to fix your life.
Susan, I was going to ask you, when you were talking about the person who gave you that feedback, do you ever give thought to like what would have happened if I had believed that person?
Yeah.
Well, two things. I think it was too late. I think I was too far down the road at that point,
Yeah.
and so one statement's not going to work. Although my boss had said similar things throughout, but of course he's saying those things and then expecting results. So that really doesn't count. But as a peer, the fellow that said it, he and I worked on many projects together as well. And so he had more credibility for me than the others that were more like competition. And so so I knew he was right, but I didn't know how to act on it necessarily. I didn't know how to not be the person that everybody knew me to be.
Yeah.
And I think in the past I had fixed it by leaving and going and finding a job in another environment, another industry. But I wasn't willing to do that because this one was just, it was doing the job. It was doing what it needed to do. So I wasn't going to go start over again. So I just stuck it out until I could get out of it. And then when it was done, it was done. I didn't wait. I took early retirement. I retired the moment I could take my 401k, 59 and a half. I was gone because I was done. I was going to have another life after that.
Oh my
So
God, Susan, I love it. I love it. Everybody put your contact in the chat so we can all connect, reach out. I've got Tim's there. Grab a time with him one-on-one. Highly encouraged. If you are interested in having your own events and reaching out to your own audience, reach out to me. And I'm going to ask for one simple thing. As we sign off in the next couple minutes, I'll give everyone a second or two to just give a thanks, a shout out, any kind of a testimonial that they like, if the event served them, if they were happy, if it helped in any way, shape, or form. And at the same time, I'd like to give you an invitation. Come back next month. It's a different conversation. We're talking about a different topic. There'll be different people. And I invite you to bring a friend. I'm not asking you to bring 3, 4, 15, 46 people. We're not turning this into some weird networking event thing. We're looking for people at the highest level, half a dozen, maximum a dozen, that can share ideas the way that we did tonight. And if anyone that you know that this kind of a conversation would serve or help or benefit or open up some of their mind, please, please, please come back next month. Bring your friend. Book a one-on-one with Tim. If I serve you, grab a one-on-one with me. We'd love to keep the conversation going.
Awesome.
So let's take 30 seconds each and sign off. Anything that tonight stuck out with you that you're happy about? We will be using these sound bites, ladies and gentlemen.
Selfishly, I
I
could
just
spend
love
Thursday
seeing Tim.
evenings with you guys. Go ahead, Steve.
I just love seeing Tim, one of my favorite all-time persons. So I'm going to give a
Me too.
testimonial for him as a person, as a man, as a mentor, as somebody that I looked up to and learned so much and went through really cool experiences with him. He is the real deal, and an authentic benchmark for anybody.
Thank you.
As a person and, just his deeper beliefs as well. I have so much respect for that. And so thank you for setting a high standard.
Thank you,
And
Steve. Thank you
I'm
very kind.
blessed to have been in your company, sir.
And hopefully you know that there's a ditto in there. You're the best.
How beautiful. Don't be scared if you see this go out. Blast it on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere.
I found it very encouraging and very insightful. Like I said, I'm always looking to what can I give and what can I glean. I've gleaned a lot. I took notes and some great quotes and some great wisdom was passed around, and I appreciate that. And everyone's had their own journey, but I think we can still all learn from one another. And I'm thankful to be invited, and I'd love to join again. I'm going to think about who to bring because
Thank you.
a bunch of people come to mind, but I want the right one to be able to connect in because I am a connector. That's important. So
You're allowed to bring more than one. I was just not
okay.
trying to encourage you to bring 46
50.
people because you
Yeah.
thought this was some weird event that's not the purpose of this.
No.
It's if you bring 2, 3 people, what a blessing, especially if it serves them. That's the ultimate point.
That's right. Thank you.
Of course.
Listening to Susan's comment before too about being around a bunch of ladies that are successful and share common interests, I might suggest that you look into the 10X Ladies, which is hosted by Grant Cardone's wife Alina. They seem to be very good events for ladies coming together and becoming more successful, I guess.
Neat. Anyone else want to share before we bug off?
I'll just say I was very touched by the depth, the honesty, and the vulnerability. And Susan, I couldn't help but to laugh when you said you were in the nuclear business because I just moved back to Raleigh, Durham, and
Oh,
this
that's where I was.
morning, this morning, Duke Energy sent off the nuclear alarm test, and I walked outside trying to figure out what in the world
What do I
was
do now?
going on.
That's got to be a weird sound. Oh my goodness.
It's very
And it was
loud.
quite the sound.
Not like the usual kind of sound. You're like, what on earth is
Yeah.
that specific?
No, you're supposed to be scared when you
Oh,
hear that.
dang. That's probably pretty accurate. Wow. Wow. Wonderful. Tim, you may cut off the recording.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Pleasure.